What's up, guys? It's Crash, and I know by now you've probably seen all over the internet talking about early access to the campaign for Modern Warfare 2 if you pre-order it. And there's going to be videos going up all over the internet, including one from my co-host of the Scope podcast, Buff Nerd Gaming. I'll leave the link to his channel in the description. After this one, go check out his channel. That's where we're going to be broadcasting live the Scope tonight. We have a really special episode, but also he's probably going to break down this trailer and look at all the guns, all the attachments, and really do a detailed look at the weapons in this trailer. So definitely go check that out if you're interested in the guns, because I'm sure you probably are for a Call of Duty. But on this channel, what I wanted to talk about is break it down from kind of a marketing standpoint. And then also they posted a blog about the development of the Darkwater campaign that we've already seen, the campaign gameplay that we've seen. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I thought that was really interesting about some of the things that went into bringing this all together, and also gives us some insight as to what they're doing with the new engine. So I love talking about that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, I just think this is a really smart marketing move, and I want to talk about that. Before we jump into the video really quickly, over on Buff's channel tonight, we will be live with Embark Studios creator Rockhound Black. We're going to talk about a lot of the news over the week with Embark Studios and what they're doing with their games. Those are a lot of former DICE developers, their new studio. And if you've searched for Embark Studios games, his name comes up. We're going to interview him, talk to him about it as a segment at the beginning of the show. And then Buff and I are going to talk about a lot of the stuff that's going on here and react to it. We'd love to have you guys come by and talk in the chat with us about what's going on. So anyways, let's talk about the reasoning behind having this come out early. And generally the old school thought, other than like Call of Duty 4 remastered, when they did the Modern Warfare remastered alongside Infinite Warfare, everything's kind of come out all at once. It's like they kind of kept everything a surprise. They kept it under wraps. But if you can imagine, me, like many other people, would just dive right into that multiplayer. We got to get guns unlocked. We got to start getting camos and stuff like that when a Call of Duty would drop, until I realized that, you know, some of the Call of Duty games recently weren't for me. But, you know, generally there's that school of thought. You got to start unlocking stuff. And a lot of times people will overlook the campaign. And what I think this does is it's just an excellent marketing ploy, right? Because people really want to get to that multiplayer, but this is going to give them a sneak peek of what the game's going to play like, what the graphics are going to look like. You're going to use some of the guns, some of the mechanics that are going to be in multiplayer, so you get a sneak peek at that. But the campaign gets the spotlight. I remember back in 2013 when the original Titanfall came out, there wasn't going to be a campaign, and many people asked Vince Zampella about that at the time, and he said, you know, they're a smaller studio and so much work goes into making a campaign, so much work, and then a lot of the people don't even play it, or they play through it in 30 minutes and then never touch it again. So when you have a game that's supposed to be as big as Modern Warfare 2 is going to be, so if you think about it, you have the 6v6 sweaty multiplayer, you know, search and destroy, domination, all that stuff, so a COD multiplayer. Then you have this campaign that likely took a bunch of work with actors, writing, the storyline, the filming, the animations, all that stuff. And then you have potential ground war coming back with new and improved vehicle mechanics for kind of the Battlefield crowd. You have a DMZ mode, which is an extraction royale type mode for Tarkov or survival type players. And then you have Warzone 2, an entirely new, one of the biggest AAA battle royale experiences. You have all this wrapped around one game. I feel like giving campaign the spotlight for at least a week is a really good way to showcase the work that they did and give it its own stage and its own spotlight, because I can see with all those other modes catering to all those different audiences, that campaign could likely get, you know, kind of swept under the rug and not paid attention to. So I think it's a really smart move from like an ROI standpoint. They've put so much into this. Now people are going to get, you know, it's going to have the spotlight for an entire week for people to play and get through and kind of hype up the multiplayer and the Warzone and the DMC and the ground war. So I think that's really smart, and I'm kind of thankful that they are coming out with information every week. This is something that I really hope Battlefield 2042 is going to do, and give us a little bit, some teasers every week in the lead up to the game. We know now that they probably didn't, because the game wasn't finished. But anyway, yeah, so that's the trailer. That's what I think about it. I think the campaign early access is really smart. Again, like PlayStation said when going back and forth with Microsoft in Brazil, when talking about the Microsoft acquisition, Sony said it themselves. They said there really is no AAA competition for Call of Duty right now. Sad as it is to say, I was hoping Battlefield was going to absolutely dominate this year. Not the case. Halo's struggling as well. So all eyes are really on Call of Duty right now, and so far it's looking pretty good. They're going to be really smart with their marketing. And honestly, their marketing is just an absolute juggernaut. So they're still doing well with that. a lot of the lighting and stuff looks good in this trailer. I think it looks really cool. And let's go ahead and take a look at that blog post where we can get some more inside information as to what goes into the new engine. So here's the article they posted about some of the behind the scenes stuff with the Darkwater campaign gameplay. That's the 7 or so minute video we got a campaign earlier. And I really wish Battlefield would have done some of this stuff. I love this behind the scenes look. It talks a little bit about sound design, water design, and some of the things that go into the game. And it gives us an idea of what they were focused on and how some of this stuff works and what they've done with the engine. Because I know a lot of times we see a Call of Duty and it looks really copy and paste, but they talk about some of the engine level improvements that they have done for this installment. And what I wanted to talk about first, I just went ahead and highlighted a few things that you guys can see. It says Darkwater balances being completely realistic while being completely ludicrous. And I think this is the sweet spot for Call of Duty, in my opinion. How this game is going to likely be at launch. You have immersive, realistic looking operators, firearms. The levels are dark, gritty. You feel like you're there. You feel like you're on a Spec Ops mission. But the gameplay itself is very arcadey, accessible. The movement is easy to get used to. There's not a lot of recoil, so it's easy to immerse yourself in because you're not focused on, trying to master crazy recoil like Tarkov or something like that. So I think that's where Call of Duty is at its best. I think that's the niche that it fits into. And also, it's always best at the beginning before they go crazy, in my opinion, with the cosmetics, the crazy anime stuff, the movie collabs that are going to probably come later on. There's going to be crazy cosmetics. That's my boomer opinion, but anyway, that's how it is. So we get into sound design a little bit, and I think this stuff is really cool. They prototyped some new hydrophone microphone techniques on a lake and recorded a killer boat sound, which is used in the intro and in the middle sections of the mission. So they actually use underwater microphones, it sounds like, to get recordings of boats and things like that. At least the waterproof microphone I would take from hydrophone. But they recorded sounds of precipitation and implanted rain emitters throughout the mission. So the way I take this is they recorded realistic rain sounds, which probably isn't that new. I'm sure they've done that for a really long time, used actual real world recordings, but it sounds like the way they have emitters, that it allows it with the sound engine to react with the environment better, to bounce off surfaces, to be occluded by surfaces coming through walls and things like that. They talked a lot about sound, and they also talked about they recorded a lot of water movement and other sound design elements. So he says the senior sound designer got to use some of his own ocean wave recordings throughout the mission. So as we'll talk about in just a second, water was a really big focus point for this game and how things interact. We can go ahead and talk about it, but we know from some of the leaks that they really focused on water, vehicle mechanics, ballistics, vision, seeing people underneath water, how bullets interact with it. And also we learned that some of the grenades, some of the tacticals and lethals can actually float and move with the waves and float on top of the water. So there was a lot that went into water physics. It definitely sounds like. And then they talk about this was to be able to create a new gameplay experience that we could spread across the different modes. So I'm hoping some of this stuff could add some realism to modes like DMZ that I'm probably the most excited to check out. And then again, like I just said, realistic water was a focus this year for Infinity Ward. With the help of an updated engine, they were able to create something that would look authentic. Again, water is a big deal. The biggest thing that helped us with our lighting was a new shadow system. So it sounds like they got a new shadow system. It will be cool to see if they do actually like RTX or real ray tracing in some of the next gen consoles, as well as, RTX NVIDIA cards and like FSR, DLSS and stuff like that are actually reflections rather than just how Battlefield 2042 did ray tracing shadows, which I'm still confused about that move. But anyway, this project, the engine helped us introduce something called PCSS, Percentage Closer Soft Shadows, which allows us to have soft shadows on high-end PCs, but also next-gen hardware too. So we might be closing that gap between a high-end PC and next-gen hardware. There is also a lot of improvement in our volumetric rendering system to solve volumetric fog, so it renders better with their ambient lights and stuff. Very technical word there, and stuff. I like that. But he said we have volumetric particles too, and I thought this was really big. Instead of just having like flat sprites, which most of our effects have always been, we're mixing up actual volumetric particles to help fill it out. So it sounds like instead of like if you would see an explosion, it might not have been able to be easy to tell because it likely turns to fit, where your camera's at, but that was likely just a flat sprite. It sounds like now it looks like there's going to be actual volumetric 3D particles. So that is a big change in my opinion, rather than like a flat image of an explosion or particles or things like that. It's actually going to be true 3D, and I think that sounds really cool. As long as it renders well, we can keep those frame rates up. And then they talk about how this new engine opens itself up to better sound capture. Audio is huge in video games. It's not something we think about right away. We look at, pretty visuals. Like that's the first thing when you see the campaign and the rocks and the lights. It looks really cool. The audio is really, really important. They can now approach missions and other elements of the game like someone in Hollywood would mix a film. So sounds like it's gonna be more adapted to storytelling, which I think makes a lot of sense and could be really cool. I'm definitely excited to hear the sound and the audio. The mission is comprised of a lot of water sounds, typically present mix. They typically present mix issues because they're so wideband and noisy. So if you think of water, there's a lot of high cracking of the waves. There's a lot of low rumbling and stuff like that. So it's a really hard frequency to isolate in the mix. In order to avoid masking of important commands and moments, we can use engine features like real-time mixing and natural limiting to help control the mix and focus. So it sounds like water might be on like its own kind of tracker input, and it can dynamically change volume so you can hear everything else in the mix. I just thought that stuff was really cool. I kind of like to geek out about this stuff. And there's so much work that people are not aware of for the AI, the environment scanning and making lighting. They went on to talk about using, photo scanning to make textures and things like that, which they have made improvements to. It's not necessarily new technology in and of itself, but it sounds like they're really working on making some of that stuff look good. This image, you can really see some of the lighting particles with the sparks below and the fog and volumetric lighting and stuff like that. So the rest of the stuff, they kind of talked about workflow between working stateside and over in China and kind of sending stuff back and forth, kind of like the 24-hour development cycle like 2042 had. You work on it for a while, then when you go home, you pass it off, and it kind of goes back around. A crazy way to work on stuff, in my opinion, but it's obviously how stuff gets done. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I kind of wanted to approach this different than most of the other creators and kind of talk about marketing and also behind the scenes engine stuff. Again, check out Buff's channel for weapon breakdowns, and also live tonight, the Scope, the podcast. I would love to see you guys there. And I think that's all I had for today. Leave a comment, subscribe if you enjoy this content. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.